Good day to all of you. My name is Oliver Tian, and I'm grateful to the organizers for giving me the opportunity to share with you my thoughts around how we can leverage AI in the rise of the Metaverse. Yes, most of us will be very familiar with AI and the Metaverse and how the new technology are slowly converging to create a brand new world for all of you. So to begin, let me now share with you my slides. The topic I have for you today is leveraging AI in the rise of the Metaverse. Now, we are seeing a lot of things happening around Metaverse. As soon as Facebook changed their name to Meta, we see that a lot of organizations, big players in the market, start to dive into the Metaverse and start to present potential opportunities for the Metaverse. Now, together with the whole concept of AI, artificial intelligence, it brings us to imagine what could be possible when these two emerging technology come together and produce to you a very powerful proposition of what we can live with in time to come. Leveraging AI in the rise of the Metaverse means that with a powerful technology like Metaverse, AI can enhance upon it even further. In fact, Metaverse would need a lot of techniques and algorithms from AI to make it successful. So my talk will focus around what can we do to leverage existing technologies and proposition by AI to support the use and the eventual success of the Metaverse. Now, when we talk about the Metaverse, we need to understand a couple of things, right? First of all, there's the real world and there's the Metaverse, right? The real world is what we see as substance, things that we touch and feel. They are built up of units of atoms. And in a sense, most of the operation, most of the activities that happen there are owned. They are created and delivered by humans. On the other hand, if you look at the Metaverse, right, most of the objects are information, right? They are bytes and bits of information that compose together eventually get shared by many, many different users. And some users could be sharing the same component and they come together in a virtual space where they can interact. So between these two worlds, right, when we digitize the real world, you get into the metaverse space. And on the other hand, as you kind of analog the technology in the metaverse, you bring it back into real life. So what you see is probably a one-to-many relationship because there's only one real world at this point in time, and there could be multiple metaverse that has been created. Eventually, all this metaverse will map back into one real world. So a person can have multiple avatars, but most of the avatars are owned by one particular individual, one particular human. So to appreciate this a little bit further, we need to understand how this whole concepts come together, right? First of all, we need to understand that in the real world, right, you log and you actually can feel and touch what is happening and time passes us by, right? On the flip side, we can create a mirror world that mimic what we have in the world today. So digital twin is a technology that looks at real life and a mirror life, right? In between, we have what we call augmented reality, which kind of look at how real and mirror lives can come together. And of course, we can create multiple virtual worlds, which is what Metaverse is all about. Now, in the whole space here, we look at a couple of things, right? Technology is now available for us to look at the interface between augmented reality and like real life. And a game like Pokemon Go, right, is an example whereby you use a device with a certain interface and allow you to augment an object into what you see. On the other hand, right, we have the ability to create an identification and interact between different identities in a virtual world. To put all this together, we need various models, we need sensors, and that are able to integrate together and create a certain degree of immersion. Now that demonstrates how the different technology come together between the real world and the virtual world. There are many, many different layers of how the metaverse can be built up. To summarize it, here is a diagram that's been proposed that looks at the creation of metaverse at 7 layers, from infrastructure to human interface, how technology being decentralized, the spatial computing technology, the creator economy, which is a very interesting concept that we need to talk about, how we can discover, and then eventually the experience. Right, the experience is what the human get to go through, whether it is in a gaming environment, whether it's social networking, whether it's in esports, in virtual theaters, or a shopping experience. Right. So this is where you get the feel of what probably can be limited within the real world, but virtually possible in a virtual world. Now, all this come together because there is technology today that can support all 7 layers, right? At the very basic level, the ground level, you're looking at infrastructure. Today with 5G, Wi-Fi 6, and many other technology that come by, it is possible for us now to realize, and with the speed and the capacity, bandwidth available, you can really kind of interact with a space that's not real to us. The human experience is very important. Hence, the interface, whether it is using the mobile phone, smart glasses, various wearables, haptic, and so on and so forth, right, allow us to connect between the real and the virtual world. Of course, because of the fact that you want to be able to reach out to a vast space, a space that is created only in the virtual world, then you need different technologies that are decentralized to be able to do that. A very important part of the technology is how you manage space, how the UI can map into a geospatial environment using 3D engines to create the experience for you. Then the next 2 layers is very key, right? That is the economy, the ability for Metaverse to create different assets, different tools, commerce and flows in this whole economy. And this is where the money really is. This is where they talk about NFTs, they talk about the virtual commerce, and so on and so forth. And finally, how do you find them? Right? How do you socialize? How do you discover the different stores? How do you curate the use of this technology and the agents that support the whole environment? So all 7 layers come together to establish the world of the metaverse. So it's not just simply a word that you go into. There's a lot of technology that's embraced in this concept. Now, what is happening is that definitely we are seeing technology grow over time. Right? This is a simple chart that shows how technology has grown from 2018 to 2021, and of course we're in 2022. Yeah, the speed and the emergence of technology has allowed us, right, to discover and realize technology that can support to build this virtual world, right? And the amount of data that's being processed, the speed of which we can do that, right, is definitely helping us to achieve that very much. But the question lies within what can AI do, and what is the interface, the use of AI in such an environment. Clearly, AI can do a lot. Yeah, understanding language, processing images, dealing with your videos. We do not just want AI models to purely do this. We want AI models to be able to understand the world that we live in and the world that we want to live in. And with the advent of Metaverse, right, we now have a unique challenge, right, and a unique opportunity to make things happen, to create what we may not have in the real world. Most of the fast progress in AI in the last decade deeply grounded in the internet space. And of course, not surprising that we've seen most progress with data models, right? And the models work around speech, language, vision, and so on and so forth. But this is not enough. right? AR and VR presents an experience of a different kind of experience that is very different, um, and is getting bigger and bigger. For example, the movement of our hands to the faces, to the whole body, require huge vectors in the mathematical formula, right, to allow information to be given out and to be received and to process the visual effect that we are all seeing. So there's a lot that AI becomes critical to the development and the execution of the metaverse. Using AI to translate messages in the metaverse is also a very important part where AI play in order for us to fully maximize what is possible in the metaverse, right? We need AI to be trained such that it is ethically able to translate what we are saying. It is not just a recorder and a play of what has been recorded. It's important that multiple languages are made possible. It is important that that is also ethically considered, right? Um, and more importantly, right, we are seeing users in the metaverse communicate in their own language, which allows us to have this AI-based language translators to reside in the metaverse, right? I can go into metaverse speaking English, but a Spanish visitor to the metaverse could reply in Spanish, and we both could communicate very smoothly and very easily. So language translation becomes a very important piece of how AI technology can support in the metaverse. Of course, we can have a virtual networking environment where everybody speaks English, right? That's easy. But because it's a metaverse, we want to be able to include a lot more technology that allow a smooth transition between different visitors to the space. So, question is, what are the key areas where metaverse can leverage AI? Well, in my view, there are probably four main domains where AI can be used. First of all, of course, is the digital avatar that we're creating, right? It takes a lot of work to create an avatar. The whole wardrobe that you want to build, the gestures that you want to have, the way you want to structure the avatar, the size and fit. A lot of all these digital avatars requires AI technology to be able to support it. Secondly, the virtual human in the virtual space. Clearly, you need to mimic what the humans can do. And that the 3D versions of all these avatars will need not only speech capability, but also language visibility. And they need to mimic or replicate human interactions and connections. This whole space of how the human behavior can be translated into the metaverse requires AI. Thirdly, as I emphasized earlier, language processing. The multilingual capability in the metaverse is a very important piece of the puzzle that's going to make metaverse work. We need to be able to speak naturally with each other without the inhibitants of language capability. And finally, very importantly, is the whole space of how data can be captured, processed, and learned as a feedback loop into the whole AI model. Whether it's you want to call it AI, whether you want to call it learning, machine learning models, it is important that the system is able to capture lots of this data, right? Do the necessary analytics to provide historical information in order to generate new outputs, right? The more data you feed, the more data that you capture allows you then to do a more eventual success, right, in the human, digital human that you want to put in place. So this whole aspect of the learning model is not just a simple AI learning model that we see in a simple retail environment, but really it has to process a huge amount of data, perform a larger pool of analytics, and more importantly, to translate that back into the behavior of the virtual human in the metaverse. Of course, there are many different challenges when we talk about using AI in the metaverse, right? It is important that the metaverse is just in its nascent state of development. And there are many, many areas that still need further research and development. AI implementation can only meet these challenges to a certain level, but we need to be cognizant of what are the different possible challenges and how we can slowly be mindful and able to overcome some of these challenges. The first is AI bias. AI as a domain is known for being biased. Garbage in, garbage out, right? It is possible that any activity that AI looks at and is learning from is biased towards what data is collected, right? If the virtual avatar or the AI algorithm has captured bias in its starting point, then it's going to create a lot more bias as it moves on because you learn the wrong things and you perform the wrong behavior. The ownership of content becomes a big question mark, right? Who is going to be a rightful owner of the content in the virtual world built by AI, right? Is it the developer? Is it a designer? Is it the owner who has got the virtual rights to it? Or is it the virtual space, right? So that becomes a unclear area where we have not clearly defined the set of rules that you want to operate from. And as a result, how do you make profits? How does commerce work in such an environment? The third challenge that typically will be faced in the metaverse space is the use of data for AI algorithm training. What data can we use to train the AI models in the metaverse? To what extent can we use this data? Is it artificially baked and translated into the system? Or are these real data that is ported over from a real world? Do you want to create an avatar of your imaginary self, or do you want to create an avatar of your own self? And all this data that you feed in will decide the outcome of what the metaverse will look like. Fourthly, the whole space of deepfakes, right? Because of the fact that now you're able to create your own avatar, identity becomes an issue, right? How do we know that an avatar that you're interacting with in the metaverse is a fake, is a fraud, right? However, it is important for us to understand the complexity of the issues we're trying to resolve. Over time, we would realize that complexity issue that we're handling to resolve tends to be a bit more complicated than what we would have expected. Beware of what we would call the runway technology. This is a diagram that's shown by the Center for Human Technology. Our ability to make sense of the complexity over time may dwindle because of the different interconnected related problems that we may not realize at first glance. The gap between the rising interconnected complexity of the problems we solve and the ability for us to make sense of what it is known as the wisdom gap. It is easy for us to jump into a conclusion that we think technology can solve all the problems we are looking for, when sometimes it may not necessarily be the case. In the age of AI, it is noted and very important to understand that human skills are needed much, much more. With AI rapidly changing the way the world is working and how humans must focus on how we can work together alongside and set ourselves apart from the robots. It is hence a very defining moment for us to eventually become masters of technology and not so much slave to technology. This means that we must refine our education system to ensure that our next generation can leave school equipped with the soft skills, the ability to think critically, and most importantly, practical knowledge of AI, whether it is in the metaverse or whether it is in any of the future of work. Well, with that, I end my presentation, but to leave you a little parting message. The humankind has lived without AI throughout history. However, in the last 2 decades, AI has been part of our lives. in many, many forms. Hence, from now on, and for our future generation, we must learn how to live with AI. Thank you very much once again for your kind attention. Stay safe and keep healthy.